Started because we want to be on time, right? So we have 1 hour for Q&A, and now you get additional pager describing what we discussed during last 2 days and what kind of actionable items we decided to come up with. This is not exclusive list, but this is what we at our board meeting, and it was joint meeting between board members and leaders of the working groups of yesterday. We came up together. So please look it over right now. And let's just air them and maybe discuss them, and also discuss those ideas, which are not put in here, which you felt passionate about and they should be reconsidered. So let me, while you're reading this list, let me tell you a couple like logistics, points, make a couple logistics points. Number one, we're gonna have information, everything what was videoed and hopefully recorded together with our PowerPoints on our website at some point. Cannot guarantee it's gonna happen this Monday, but relatively soon. That's number one. Number two, we have a list of emails of participants. Unfortunately, early experienced, especially with part of our participants, was that not all of them wanted that to be shared, unfortunately. So we're going to be careful, and then we're going to ask each participant if that person going to be on that list, wants to be on the list. Jack, could you please join us, please? Yeah. So that's kind of with regard to materials, what we were hearing today and yesterday. And then with regard to actionable items, let me just open it for our general discussion, and maybe some ideas or concerns or suggestions which are not on that list we need to discuss as well. Russell, please. So we thought that for the next year we need to be much more focused than we were before, and that's in part why we had this meeting smaller than our previous meetings. It was done intentionally. This meeting was by invitation only. Each invitees could invite 1 to 2 people depending on, and that's it. Okay, so we decided that we need to have much more focused efforts because DELSA as Alliance of Data-Enabled Life Sciences is, we're not trying to boil the ocean. We need to be very specific. We need to define what we are focusing on much better. And we are very young, so as we talked in our previous meeting with board and the group leaders, every success is great, but every misstep equals to 3 to 5 successes. So we need to be very careful. We are very mature, 18 months old baby. Okay, so I think we need to take that into account. What we decided to do on your list. So of course we talked about several projects. It's not there. This one? That's much better. Oops. Thank you, Courtney. So we decided to basically leverage our early discussions on different types of publications, new type of publications, also discussions on workflows and how research resources can be addressed differently in the data-enabled life sciences. That's why we decided to start new working group. And again, working group is a strategic one. It's to build community capacity. It's not something very short on data publication strategies. And that's working group going to be formed after this meeting. Again, everything here is community-based work. If you feel passionate about any of those topics and you want to join or lead it, please do, step up to the plate. Okay. That was point number one. Point number two was importance of workforce development. We talked about that during both days, and we felt very passionate about from the day one we were started. We think that, leveraging our new microgrant program, we need to do microgrant outreach for younger generations. I recently visited, several places and talked to people, and usually I realize that I talk to people of my age or even older. And I've, participated in meetings like this, and if you look even around, we are older than younger generations, right? So we need to bring them to the table as well. And one of the ways to do it is to have this micro-granting outreach program. Similarly, and we talked about the DELSA global aspect, being really global, and we introduced new non-American board directors as of today. We have to reach out to developing countries, and I couldn't agree more that solutions we come up in developed countries, it's not going to be the way we're going to decide and solve our big data or deep data or complex data problems in life sciences and just push it to developing world. Much more smart people live in developing countries. We simply need to open their creativity, and one of the ways to reach out, we're going to try to do it through our own microgrant outreach program for developing countries. Number 4 on this list is we need to properly celebrate our successes and market our work as well. And one of the easiest way to do it through progress report, which is going to be useful for not only our supporters, but also members and community at large. So we're going to focus on that, and we hope to do it within very short time, first approximation of reality within very short time, hopefully by mid-summer. Number 5 is, while we're talking about a lot of interesting problems, we need to have very clear operational definition of what are data-enabled life sciences. And we thought that, using MOOC or maybe mini MOOC and doing data-enabled life sciences 101 would be appropriate step towards defining what we are doing and what we are passionate about. That was number 5 on this list. Definitely, we spent time talking yesterday primarily about Quantified Human project, and we're officially starting this as one of our endorsed projects. And again, it would help tremendously to us and community at large if we define it in much more specific terms. Of course, it's going to be a developing entity, but we need to start with something. We decided to start with FAQs. And this is going to be developed within a short time, definitely before data, metadata, metrics, and other important components of that project is going to be put in front of community at large. Not only standard life sciences community, but also maybe for citizen scientists and for people outside of our domain. And that would be a very important step. And it's on our actionable item list number 6, FAQs, which is going to help to basically make actionable, quantified human project itself. And we're going to have very specific items for each of the groups of what we discussed yesterday and today. So we have 5 groups discussions. We decided to keep them. Let me just air them for those who didn't participate in those discussions yesterday. One is on metadata, data and metadata. Another one, that one is led by Leonard Martins. Second one on metrics and evaluation, led by Ilkay Altinas. They're sitting right here, actually close to each other. Number 3, it was about research outreach, and that's led by Viral. Number 4 was led by Rob Jeffrey and Jack. It's about outreach for general public. And number 5 was led by Todd and it's about data vision. We used primarily data vision, which was developed by NSF as our baseline discussion, and we're going to push those 5 working groups and make them very specific, again, by mid-summer. And the last but not least, we decided to start planning for our next meeting in a year from now, more or less. It looks like May works for many people. Nothing is ideal time-wise, but May works for many people just fine. And we, despite we've been only 18 months old, we tried a couple ways. We tried to have DELSA meetings piggybacked on other major meetings, and it worked in 1 out of 2 cases. But when we organized our own meeting, it worked, we think, every time. So we decided to stick with that one. So we're not going to have 2 meetings a year from now on. We're going to have only 1 meeting, but we plan to use internet and video conferencing and conference calls much more. That's what we used before a lot, but we're going to use it even more. So this is a list of things we know we're going to be focusing on for sure. If there are any questions, maybe clarifications, maybe suggestions, maybe critique, plus ideas which were not put on that list, and you felt you know it's important to be heard, please do come up and ask questions or suggest ideas. And of course, as usual, after the meeting, we have approximately 1 month for you to send your specific proposal. It should be short, it should be, less than 2-page long. If you feel that this is important, send it out. We have, we think, a reasonable way, to deal with anything which is important. We discuss it in different groups, conference calls, through surveys. And then we have steering committee, which is actually our action team of a couple dozen individuals. Some of them here, some not. And then if it's, okay by steering committee, then it bubbles to board of directors, and then we discuss that and review and accept as new project or working group. So again, it's not exclusive list, but this is what we think we need to focus in order to be focused and not boil the ocean. Any questions, ideas, critique, please, it's open.
Gene, what about international meetings?
So, why not? Point is, I think what we are not doing great, and I think there was question about before about marketing. We in science don't do that properly, or rarely do that at all. If you personally go into meeting, you're representing not only yourself, you can represent DELSA as well. It would help if we do that more often in other venues. We go into many, many meetings. We see many, many people. We publish many, maybe not so reproducible papers, but we do publish. So why, in addition to your primary affiliation or affiliations, not to add DELSA Global? That's what some of us started doing on a regular basis, and that's very helpful.
Just to respond to Jeffrey, we have to remember that there are DELSA hubs in different parts of the world. As Eugene also has announced, there will be a meeting in India this summer. So a lot of these hubs, it's envisioned that will create their own conferences or will participate in conferences. So as an alliance, I think DELSA Global is well poised to serve as a federator, if you like, because even the model of international conferences are changing. It's very hard and expensive to have a major international conference, but one can organize regional hub conferences, and DELSA can serve as a useful federator, if you like.
Question, Gene, or anybody? So this is from the sponsor side. So I believe a report, I put in money. How
It's an easy question to answer. I was just saying to Gene that I thought that was an easy question to answer. We will be seeking to make sure that those who have sponsored us and supported us are well informed without being overburdened with details of the things that have happened, which I think for an 18-month-old toddler are pretty impressive. But equally, more important, to have discussions with those and potential supporters and sponsors, certainly including industry, about possible collaborative relationships. So I think that's going to be a very important strategic front for DELSA, for sure.
Is there a periodic upgrade that you're thinking on once every 3 months, quarterly? Is there a thought process?
We haven't resolved any kind of timetable on that, but associated with that one bullet regarding progress report is some additional thinking about the point which you raise, how to make sure we are nourishing those relationships and building new ones.
I'm a proxy for Intel as well, by the way, so.
Great. We want to remain close to you.
So the follow-on question was, quantify with human, and if there, I think I mentioned this already, I'm not promising anything yet, but there's a process that we could bring in products from both EMC and Intel to the table as a prize, if you will, for the best research project, and that actually interests me quite a bit.
We will certainly keep track of that as well.
And that's, answering that one, we, in our point number 7 about quantified human actionable items, each of the group already have preliminary list of actions, right? And one of them would be along the lines of this composition, how we're going to go about it, how we're going to do data quest on quantified human. So we definitely have further discussion. And up to now, our partners, supporters, we don't have too many of them. So we treated them very carefully in case-by-case situation. For Moore Foundation, it worked like this. For maybe EMC and Intel going to work like that. So I think people are, it's Friday, midday. And that, I think, something, another lesson we need to learn. I have question, actually, for maybe panel, previous panel, and maybe our current panel. But let's start with previous panel. How do you think, DELSA gonna help to accelerate your own work? And maybe that's works for the rest, not only panel participants. With regard to, your own current planning of policy, of research calls, granting support, whatever you guys do. Because I think in huge part we are born because of multiple discussions, primarily with NIH, but earlier with NSF. And we have a couple unsung heroes, one of them sitting right here, Peter McCartney, who helped to sponsor pre-DELSA meetings of this kind. So how do you think now this 18 months old, mature organization can help you on different level? Based on what you heard today, yesterday, based on your current needs are?
So I'll give you the answer I don't think you want. I wouldn't worry about our goals or our needs. We've all got jobs, and we're not dependent on grant funding to doing our job. It's you guys who represent a community that for better or for worse, is dependent on doing the things that you do by, successfully getting support, either from federal or private or wherever, to build what you want. And so I really think that the people that you're trying to help and serve are kind of yourselves and the broader community. And so, I mean, we hear the things that you do, and they have impact in helping us think, but at least at NSF, we don't really have goals other than to support and help the science community. The science community are the ones that have goals. Now, maybe some of the other agencies that have a little bit more precise mission definition, it's a little different. But for NSF, really, you know, we don't set initiatives, we don't set goals. We try to create programs that help you do what you want. So really, it's what DELSA can do on behalf of coordinating the community that makes the community more successful at building the kinds of infrastructure it needs to do its science. We'll follow, but I don't worry about the things that we're trying to do and think of sort of supporting that. It really should be kind of the other way around.
So you've, I think, Eugene, you and your group have successfully become kind of a voice of a big community. We heard a lot about some of the projects that are drawing that community together. We also heard about the fact that it's kind of difficult to define where the edges of this community are because you interact with many other areas in the behavioral sciences, economics, healthcare, and so on. And so the degree to which you can extend the conversation outside of the obvious immediate community to the other communities and generate broader consensus on things like how large data centers interact and ways that data can be exchanged across really very different domains, and how to create opportunities for conversations that should be happening but aren't today. So you have really the power of community, and it would be great to see you expand that power as much as you can.
Can I just follow up really quickly on that, because it's sort of in response to a question that was asked earlier about how does NSF and NIH interact. And really, from my perspective, that interaction happens more through you than it does between me and program officers at NIH. I mean, that's the thing that's always struck me about this community, is I have PIs, when I look at their current and pending, I see NSF, NIH, some DOE, and, you know, and a few other things in there. So that interaction really is happening in the community. And I think that it's nice to have a platform like DELSA where we can see these conversations happen outside the context of a specific foundation perspective, you know, a specific NSF or NIH, but one that's really, you know, sort of orthogonal to the funding agencies and more focused on what's the community trying to do.
May I respond? I will quick respond while the microphone is passing on. I guess big data requires a big community. It's fair to say that. And there was also comments about the V's of big data. I guess everyone knows this now. There were 3 V's, and we expanded to 5 V's now. It's big data time, right? So the V's were volume, velocity, variety. I think the 4th one was veracity, ability to sort of, you know, validate the data. But we added a 5th one, which is valorization. For valorization, we need masses actually to link big data to utility. Randomized controlled trials will not be the answer or not the only answer. So we need the masses. In other words, big data needs, therefore, a big community. So as we do the DELSA Global, we're building the community as the big data also moving forward. And my own take on it, this is different than the usual careerism or individual careers, because when I contribute to the big community, it benefits me but also others, and vice versa. So it's about collective innovation. And another way of looking at this, it's exciting because we're at the beginning, emerging stages of big data. So think of this. If we tilt the innovation trajectory 1 degree now at this early stage, it may amount to 10, 15 degrees opportunity to shape the innovation trajectory 2 years down the road. But if you're dealing with the entrenched system, it's harder to shape the innovation trajectory. So in other words, it's an opportunity to shape this new emergence, if you like, looking at both social and technical sides, and I'm personally excited about it.
The 6th
So
V is
as-
viscosity, by the way.
Sorry?
There's
Can
a
you
6th V, which is viscosity, I recently heard.
Oh, I can add another one. Value. I think, you know, Chris mentioned 15 V's, right? 15, right? Yes. I think, yeah, so I think we need to, and DELSA decide out of this 15, what 2.5 are really of major importance, right? So please, let's start with it. Yes.
So as chair of one of the RDA working groups, I can say that we envision among the working groups most progress coming from use cases, and the more widespread the use cases are, the more likely the resulting infrastructure, conceptual and physical, will be useful. So in the 1 degree to 15 degrees, the earlier different groups get involved in these conversations, the better. At some point, of course, you may stretch it too far. I don't know, but I would certainly advise participation in that group, which is global and is attempting to find data infrastructure across many domains.
So maybe, somebody wants to say something very different. Are we missing something important? Please go ahead. Okay.
Just hearing from representatives of NIH and NSF, it makes me think maybe DELSA could, as a service to its scientists or members who have to actually write grants, maybe we can formulate sort of boilerplate paragraphs that are needed about big data and about standardization and sort of compliance with things. Maybe just as a group, we can write down some things that will make grant writing easier for us and more coherent when it finally surfaces in the agencies.
I can see Eric is going for a few nano publications there.
Yeah.
I really like that idea because in the education community, when we apply for NSF grants, we're all confronted with this thing about writing a data management plan, and none of us have any idea how to do that. So that would be really great.
I have enough rejected grants that I need help formulating the next round. So.
Over there.
It's there. Yes.
Yeah.
So when the data management plan requirement was announced, a bunch of universities decided that they were going to help their PIs by providing boilerplate data management plans. When the reviewers look at it, it's a completely different thing. So there may not be a generic data management plan. It has to be appropriate for the project. It needs to be tailored appropriately to meet the scope of the project, the type of data that's being generated, and so on. So I would caution against this boilerplate approach to dealing with these things. It can backfire.
I think one point about boilerplates, we also had different experiences with that when we tried to learn from the best. But what we found useful is checklists. Checklists do work. And for data management plan, for research plan, for more or less anything you do? Yes, for broader impact. So, and we're gonna address it in our 101 Data Enables Life Sciences and FAQs as well. And we're gonna think about this, maybe checklists, maybe, a la Nature, but not only for publications themselves, but for grant writing as well.
Yeah, I spend so much of my time writing grants that anything
Sure.
that can make it easier.
Sure.
Yeah.
There was somebody else,
So it's kind of, I'm Stephen Marcus at the NIGMS. So it's kind of scary that even at this early stage, you'll see the eye rolling. So part of it is the jar, and I'm talking about, for example, big data. So you hear terms like that, and already in funding meetings internally and in other sort of meetings, you already see the eye rolling. You already see this, okay, everyone's jumping on this bandwagon. So now the term itself, depending on who you talk to, either is a wonderful way to open up a discussion or a way to close it immediately. It's sort of scary how quickly it's happened. Quite frankly, it's so quick that I'm surprised. So I think the whole idea of what you've been talking about is really essential, to get beyond the buzzword into a good discussion of what we're talking about and why it's important. And I understand the boilerplate idea is not good, but even to have a way to describe it in a way that's going to get through a study section or get through people, it just would so be helpful. I think another example is the whole social network stuff. I went through a period, I'd sit in study sections, and anytime there was a social network analysis, somebody would raise their hand and say, oh no, more spaghetti graphs. And they'd say, well, has anyone ever used any of this stuff for anyone? And then there would be this dead silence. No one could come up with an example. And I kept on screaming because there were examples, it's just people didn't know about it and they didn't do a good job of articulating how these data and these kinds of visual representations could be actually used. So a group of people, and I and whatever, sat down and started writing just some little stuff to actually demonstrate this stuff was important. So now I haven't heard spaghetti graphs mentioned in a while, so it's really kind of cool. But you're really close to getting to that point where that eye roll is going to turn off more people than it's going to help. Sorry.
Thank you for these pungent observations. And it does occur, I think you're absolutely right on. And it occurs to me we would do well to invite you and other volunteers to serve as an external panel when we have a first draft of this 101 course and put it through a screen of folks who've seen eyes roll. So thank you.
I'll also quickly comment on that. I think that requires a bit of a sociological answer. What you're really referring to is a contestation of a new emergence. So big data is really here. So we're not really denying it, and this group is attempting to understand it. So we have a sort of a symmetrical look at it. We're trying to understand where this may lead to, what are the benefits, what are the unintended effects. So as such, we will examine all those processes. So I don't see it as a negative thing, nor a positive thing. We are studying this emergence, and that's the right thing to do, because if it is not done, then the innovation will be left free and we will not harness it.
Hi, this is Harsha Rajasimha again from Jiva Informatics Solutions, bioinformatics company. Just to be self-critical, considering myself as part of the DELSA family now for a couple of days, one of the things I like to note is we have this long-term goals and vision for 5 years, 10, 15 years time frame. That's great. It's good to have that, but also if we can have more short-term measurable goals for 1 year, 2 year time frame, that would give more focus. Just looking at the action items we have listed so far for the next year, those are not necessarily life science enabling in a measurable way in some sense. So if you can also, another point I wanted to note is our long-term goals are based on defined around the human project. So if you could add more broader life science angle to it, that would make it, the name and the goals would be more consistent that way. Or maybe, other way as well. So that's one thing. So maybe agriculture, we could have some focus on agriculture or other areas. So not sure if I'm going tangentially, but.
Not at all. No, those are all good observations. And it's certainly the case that in terms of thinking of long-term timeframes, we're out ahead in that sense, more on the quantified human than other aspects. But the agenda of DELSA, of course, is much broader. It does include agriculture and the full array of life sciences. And to your first point, please come back to us, challenge us, push us to have robust content that will deliver real value. And we'll be very open to that. Thank you.
I don't show up for a day and then I'm blabbing here. So I have a couple other potential tangents that may have been discussed earlier, and Gene, you and I can talk about this afterwards. There's also right now going on a lot of effort in VVUQ, the National Research Council, the Math Board of NAS, put together an amazing report that I can plug. It's probably the best single report on validation and verification of modeling. It was basically written by some physicists and a bunch of people that understand continuous phenomenon. So we've commissioned, so we'll be working with them to sort of extend it into the world of categorical and discrete type phenomenon that we see more often in the social sciences. But there's a lot of stuff going on. I can send you a link. And I know that's only part of what you're doing, but you're enabling a whole community, but there is a part of it that as this gets out there, there are, again, the naysayers saying, well, you're overselling it, and just because we now call something machine learning and not AI doesn't mean that it's, the same old overselling. And so there are people, so instead of the pushback happening, there are groups that are sort of, at the right part of the curve that are really looking at how do we help people understand how to use these models and validate them. And so I would argue for that. The other area, just as an aside, is the whole area of algorithms. I sit in on meetings, and there are a whole bunch of people that say, we need more algorithms. And then the other side of the people that hold up an issue of IEEE in which every article is on an algorithm. So which is it? We've got so many algorithms, we don't have enough. Personally, I think that I don't have a sense, if I have a particular problem, I don't have a sense of which algorithm to use. There's not enough comparison. There's not enough people looking at them, trying to understand when they're useful, when this one should be used and not that one. So it's very complicated. The answer is all the above, but I think DELSA could also play a role in helping. And I'm really talking a lot about marketing. I just don't want to lose people because there's too much complexity and not enough people in the computer sciences, mathematics, and engineering sort of helping those in the life sciences understand how to use these things and use them appropriately. And that should be it.
Thank you. Thank you for a great comment. So I think we talked about collaboration in innovation through collaboration. And I think we already touched several issues with regard to public-private collaborations between DELSA and our supporters. It would be great if we can be, I would say, we definitely support new focus on big data and deep data and diverse data, but I think it would be very important if organizations on governmental side, which are part of our ecosystem, we are the same people, just changing chairs. If these organizations gonna hear a community through DELSA, for example, and hear importance of coming up with support of this new important and very uneasy to solve issues. We talked at some point yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, about importance of not only supporting PI-driven science, but transdisciplinary science. And one way, of course, is through centers of excellence, or these kind of mechanisms, which are happening on different levels, supported by different agencies. It would be also important to have that kind of approach, maybe become more flexible and more up to times with regard to very complicated issues like quantified human or quantified cell or quantified ecosystem and alike. And I also wanted to make very clear that point number 7 on our agenda, last minus 1, we didn't specify exactly what working group, which working group going to be working on what. That's up to more discussion. So if you didn't see your specific project and idea reflected in our current list, it doesn't mean it was not taken into account. It means that you have approximately 1 month to connect with appropriate working group or working groups and have discussion through email, through conference calls, okay? So I highly encourage you to do that. If we have any other points we want to discuss, let's do it. Please go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, just to respond to your point about algorithms, I guess in my opinion, algorithms need to be justified on a one-at-a-time basis. That you kind of can't say in general, do we need more algorithms or not? Given how data scale is increasing, it's probably not surprising that we may need new algorithms in new areas. Old algorithms were developed for the old scales. But there are a lot of algorithms out there, so I think each one has to be justified individually to say there's reason to think that this is a hard problem and that we have a way to solve it.
So then if that's last issue our audience want to raise. I want to just, ask each panel member if you want to say something specifically, do it right now. That would be very nice, short and specific, just to encourage, inspire, or share your experiences.
So I can start. I just wanted to remind people in this view of Luke's that I presented, you can join contributions of different people together because we're trying to make a repository of these short objects. And so I encourage people who are interested in contributing to this group to contact us.
So from my point of view, I think one of the points that Jean pointed out yesterday was that DELSA is going global, but the old continent, Europe, was still missing from the list. We'll be working on that. We've got a few people from Europe here now. We'll be working on that on the next months. I think that's going to be a big thing as well, to try and get people in Europe on board with this wonderful initiative. It's about time that happens. So I guess that's something that I will be focusing on, with the help of quite some nice people there as well.
Just to pick one, I think a lot of us here are PIs and managers of sort, and the actionable items will need graduate students and postdocs and, doers to do a lot of the time. So I encourage everyone to encourage others to become members of the working groups and, really work on them. And I think the outputs will be really publishable science, which will gain popularity. So the rewards will be in terms of citations and things like that, which will be important for those young people.
Thank you, Kai. I guess, if I understand correctly, it's meant to be an inspirational kind of thing. I see, this is my personal view, but DELSA Global is about building a community. It's not really about me or us, about you, about all of us. It's about collective innovation. DELSA Global has a strong transgenerational focus to generate these public goods that can be harnessed by anyone. In some sense, big data represents it. And on the last note, I would like to refer to a word in South African Zulu language that you might be familiar. Archbishop Desmond Tutu used this a lot. It's called Ubuntu. Ubuntu in Zulu language means I am because you are. So in a way, it emphasizes the interdependencies among us. I am who I am because in a way, I'm defined by you. So we wrote about this concept recently in a paper with Eugene and pass it on to Jack.
I think Verl said in Zulu what I was going to say in English. But I most genuinely will take away appreciation for everyone who was here and your very high-level work and participation. These meetings don't always succeed. I mean, these types of meetings, DELSA meetings succeed, but they succeed because of what you bring to them. I will also take away inspiration from yesterday's session, especially with Larry Smarr, who was impressive in his humanity and humility as well as his brilliance. So thanks for being here.
And just last point, thank you very much for sticking around. And I also want to appreciate help of DELSA team who put this meeting together, and specifically Courtney, who is sitting there, who accomplished so many things single-handedly. And again, thank you everybody for participation. We're gonna see you soon. And it's gonna be done not only in real life, but hopefully by conference calls, emails. Thank you very much.